Hey everyone, welcome back to the District 3 podcast. My name is Irvin. Today I'm actually doing this episode by myself. Elena and Migs are not here. Migs is actually busy. He's over there filming the Walmart's Associates week-long festivities, and Elena is working. So they couldn't make this episode. We're recording live here from the Crossroads Learning Center here in Rogers. With us today, we have a great educator, someone that a lot of people in our community look up to. Him and his team just recently won the 6A state championship in soccer here in Arkansas, representing Heritage High School. With us is Christian Saavedra. How are you, Christian?
Man, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me. I've followed your journey for a while now, and so it's an honor to be here speaking to you.
Brother, I'm glad you're finally here. I've reached out to you a few months ago
The schedule's been crazy.
Make this happen.
Yeah, man.
But now unintentionally, now you're state champ, right? So it works out better. Now you can come and talk about this journey of you and your students and like what that means to you. How are you feeling right now?
That's the question that have been asked a lot, because when you coach and you finally get a championship, people want to know if it's one of those things where it's like you feel like you arrived. And I would say that I feel lighter. I feel less pressure on my shoulders, just because who my players are and their journey, and to finally be able to, I always talk to them about carrying themselves like champions.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily mean, to win a championship, you have to do that. You have to prepare before you get there. So I feel relieved. I feel proud. I really feel like this group of young men that are leaving, it's one of the biggest senior classes we've graduated in a while. They deserve, the recognition, because they check the boxes of being champions. The way they help out in the community, the way they are, they're good sons,
Mm-hmm.
good boyfriends. They're just good people, and so I feel proud for my boys. Proud for the coaching staff that it takes a full village to make all of this happen. And so I just feel happy and proud for the group of individuals that that's been in this journey, and to be able to call them champions now, it has a very good meaning, especially because of the journey. We didn't score a lot of goals throughout the season, so it was a season of struggling in the attacking third, but definitely at the end of the day, we knew what our final goal was when it came to the championship, and things worked out.
Hey, by the way, knowing about the content that we're going to talk about in this podcast, I feel like one of us is going to cry, or both of us are going to cry.
Hey, bro, it's nothing wrong to cry.
I don't cry a lot. I always tell my wife, I'll be like, there's two things that make me cry. It's thinking about my dad, who passed away a few years back,
Yes, sir.
or it's soccer stories,
Yeah.
or like sports stories.
Yeah, man.
Like I'll be watching a pro wrestling documentary and something really powerful that happened, a powerful story. I'll be tearing up. All these different
Sports
things.
will do that to you.
Watching the Last Dance, Michael
Yeah.
Jordan on Netflix. Also,
What a show.
It's like all these different things make me tear up. So this is a safe space, though. We're both very front facing with our emotions, and
We're cool, man.
So
Yeah.
I'm glad to have the opportunity to be able to talk to you, because even just before you reach the pinnacle of high school sports, when it comes to this championship, you have a very powerful story. You've been through a lot to even get to this point.
Right.
So I kind of wanted to start by just talking about that. What was your journey like to come to the United States? What did that look like for you?
Right.
Because you were born here, right? And then you left.
Man, it's a crazy story, because even when obviously I've met you through advocacy, and I think because of my story, I didn't really have a choice in the advocacy world. I always had to fight for mine and fight for my own, and so I think we know a lot of the similar people because of that journey of advocacy. And it's been crazy. When I tell people the journey, it seems like some of the stories seem kind of unbelievable, just because I've lived it, so I didn't really think about it. But as I reflected it, I grew up in El Salvador. So I grew up with my grandmother, and I was there until I was about 13 years old. And while I lived there, I misspell my name all the time, because it has a couple extra H's in there, and I didn't know that. And I didn't know that I was born in California. And I was born in Compton before it was cool to be born in Compton, And so I was born there, but I didn't know. I didn't speak English. I've never been to the U.S. other than when I was born. And yeah, I've actually never talked about this publicly, but my mom had me at a very young age, and there's a lot that goes on with that, and she made a decision that changed my life forever, and in a good way, because she decided that I should grow up with my grandmother, and I will forever thank her for that decision, because whatever you think of me, that's credit to my grandma,
What
because
was your grandmother like?
man, she's still alive, and she's a fighter, dude. Like, everything that I do when it comes to, you know, I have bad moments, and I don't really have bad days, just because when I feel like it's getting tough, we grew up working in the coffee bean fields in El Salvador, making nothing, cleaning houses, no electricity, no running water, just a one room house, made out of mud. Like, we grew up with one bed, just, but we never complained. Like, I never saw her sad, sick, likely story of a lot of our, Hispanic community. We just get stuff done. And, she will wake up at 4 a.m. to catch the bus to go to the coffee bean fields. And a lot of times that's my memories growing up over there are in the mountains. And, I love outdoors. I love anything that has to do with nature. So it's fitting that I came to Arkansas. But my grandma was just, man, she's just a fighter, man. She just, she had no business raising a little boy over there with all the stuff that was going on with gangs and everything. And, she made me iron my clothes every morning, make sure that I, now people give me a hard time because most of the time I'm wearing suit and ties. But that comes from her. I've always dressed up nicely, just because she would always tell me, like, mijo, no te pueden confundir cuando andes en las calles con un marero. And so she would never want me to be confused by a gang member. Even though, ironically, a lot of my friends were, growing up over there. And she would always want me to be well dressed and to set myself apart in that way. I didn't really understand it. If I'm being honest, I fought her a lot on that, because I wanted to just be like my friends and dress like they did. But she knew what she was doing, keeping me away from tough decisions there. And yeah, she's my hero. She's everything to me. And she's taught me that when things get tough, you just get your head down and work, and eventually the right people get around you, and you look up and you have a whole community cheering you on, and you're winning a championship. So it all comes back to her.
Where do you think that motivation that you have comes from? Because it seems like you have all this like energy where you just want to give to people, you want to help them, and you have a very strong personality because of that. Where do you think that comes from? Is part of it because of your grandma?
I think, part of it from my grandma. And also, I think at a young age, I realized, when I started realizing life ain't fair, right? Like, everybody wants to grow up, you want to grow up with mom, dad. I also didn't know my dad until I was about 13 years old. And I kind of I had two choices. And I do remember thinking back on, like, there were times where I got upset at life, and there were times that I kind of used that as motivation. And I think it does tie back to the teachings of my grandmother, where, I would come home and I would tell her about a game that I lost, and a penalty kick that, we missed or something. And I would wait for her to kind of console me and be like, "Yo, mijo, well, yeah, you're right. And yeah, maybe life ain't fair." And she never really did that, man. She always kept it real with me, and she'd be like, "Well, go practice, Yeah. Well, why didn't you take the penalty kick?" I'll be like, "Man, it's because my homie missed the PK." She'll be like, you gotta feel out there, like, go practice. How come you're passing on the ball? And which turned into, taking leadership roles on my team since I was a young age. It turned into being a captain of a team. And I think that drive and really helping others comes from what I've seen her do. But also, I just see the world that way. I think growing up with nothing, I just see that at the end of the day, we're here for a short time. And if you have an opportunity to help others, then you're by default changing the world. You're changing that person's world. And I always, growing up, I dreamed of people changing my world. And I would watch Sábado Gigante and hope that I was one of the winners there, in the show and things like that. I always dreamed of bigger things than I had outside my window. And I think once I got the opportunity to be able to help people, I enjoy that. I enjoy helping others, because I know that, some of us, as tough as my journey has been, I'm fortunate to be in this country and to be able to advance myself. So yeah, I think it's a mixture of seeing her do that for people, but also from a young age, I just somehow harnessed, hardships and turn them into motivation. I think that's something that comes out with the teams that I coach, is that, one of the things that I always tell the boys after we lose a game or something, I'll say, hey, hold on, let's take a time right now. Let's look at what's going on. All this pain, let's turn it into motivation. So tomorrow we should have the best practice ever, because we don't ever want to be in that spot. And yeah, man, it just kind of has developed that way. And I'm blessed to have good friends around me that allow me to harness my personality. And I love helping others. And I think in return, it just feels like you build a bigger community when you do that. I think not a lot of us are blessed enough to be in this situation of leadership and be able to influence our own community. So I take pride in that.
I sometimes, think to myself that we tend to want to become the individual that we wish we had helping us when we were young.
Yeah.
I know I do.
Yeah.
Because I know for me, when it comes to like community work and stuff, there was some good people that helped me here and there, but I felt like there could have been more help.
Yeah.
So now with the immigrant rights work that I do, I'm always like, what can I be for this person that I wish was for me? Like when I was a kid, what was I missing? I was missing confidence in being in front of the camera.
Yeah.
I was missing, communication skills, and just being like having people open the doors for me.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have many people open the doors for me. So nowadays it's like one of my biggest priorities when it comes to community work.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this event's happening. These elected officials are going to be there. I'm going to invite all these people to come and like be part of this process and learn and make relationships so that these relationships can help them in the future. Right. So I think there's a lot of value in that, and just seeing, like what you can do to help out others that you wish you had.
Yeah, and I think there's an element to that, and I respect all the work you do. I've been blessed to watch it from up close, and so thank you for all the stuff that you do for our families and in our community. I think it speaks volumes of who you are as a person, and I think you're right. I mean, there's an element of, especially in education in the world that I live in, is that you want to be. I'm changing all the things that I didn't like in school. Like, we were talking earlier before the camera got rolling about my way of disciplining students here in Crossroads, and one of my favorite things to ask them is like, hey, do you think that's fair? Because I want to have a dialogue with them where they understand life without discipline and rules sounds fun, but it's kind of chaotic, and then in return you grow up to be an adult that might not be able to pay your bills or take care of things. And so we do, as much as we fight discipline and structure, human nature is that we need that. And I wish somebody would have explained those things to me earlier, so I didn't have to learn them as an adult. And so I try to do that for our kiddos, and I try to remember that, they're not broken people. They're just kids that are having a hard time with things, and try to have that connection with them where they understand, hey, we have rules. We're in an alternative environment, so there's going to be things that we're going to target, certain behaviors. But at the same time, you have a say in this. So if you think there's a better way for you to learn this lesson, then let's have a conversation about that. And I think that, to your point, it allows me to be the advocate for my kiddos that I wish I had, growing up.
Yeah, and I'm glad, we're here recording at Crossroads. But like I was telling you before we started recording, I had a situation where I think it was actually 8th grade that I was in. And I was about to go into 9th grade, and I had a teacher who, I'll use a term I thought was racist. They were telling me not to speak Spanish in class, and
Absolutely.
I ended up just not wanting to go to class. And I think I had the record at George Junior High for like the most tardy ever in the history of the school.
Hey,
because I missed like almost, I think it was like close to 200 something tardies I think I had, because I would miss my first period because I didn't want to be around the teacher.
Yeah.
So they eventually told me, they were like, hey, like you have good grades, but that class is like not going to allow you to pass. So you have the option of going to ALE, the alternative learning environment, now known as Archer.
Yeah.
And I was telling you that I went there at the beginning a little intimidated, right?
Yeah.
But when I got there, I met some of the best people, not only students, but staff and just people in there that were really wanting us to succeed.
Right.
We had a little gym in there that like at 3 p.m. they would call us up and they'd be like, hey, anybody want to go to the gym? You're welcome to come in. And we would all go work out and bond and stuff.
Yeah.
And I would hear about Crossroads too. That was a very similar environment to where I was at. So being here, like I know that you are probably doing a good job at connecting with these individuals and showing them that, whatever they're going through in life, like there's a way out.
There's a way out. Yeah.
There's a way to succeed.
Yeah. And so it's interesting because as you're telling the story, I made the connection that the first school that I went to, that we used to have an English academy. And so when I got here from El Salvador, I went to what was called the Southside building, which was crossroads in the English academy right next to each other. There's tennis courts now at Heritage where that building was. Mm-hmm. But it was literally like on one side of the school was Crossroads, and on the other side was the English Academy. Mm. And to your point, some of my friends that I still talk to came from that building. And really, I think it was a point where I was able to be myself. And throughout, you spoke about that teacher, telling you not to speak Spanish.
Yeah.
And I think that when we come to this country, sometimes we think that the less of an accent we have, the cooler we are, or the better we're going to be, because society wants us to believe that. I'm kind of glad we're doing this in the afternoon, because the longer my brain works, you're going to be able to tell that my accent comes out and I get tired, and that's just research there. But being in that school, starting off, I think if I would have started in a regular school where everybody had it figured out and everybody's wearing their nice little polos and all that, I might have not had the same success I had in school. Mm-hmm. Because being there, I was able to be myself. I met friends from El Salvador and Mexico and Venezuela and Puerto Ricans, and all of a sudden we were able to kind of create our own culture within that school, and our personalities came out. Mm. And I think that's one of the things that when I hear you talk about a teacher telling you not to speak Spanish, I don't know if you've thought about this, but I think I'm funny in Spanish. And I always wonder, like, if people that don't speak Spanish, like, I wonder what version they know of me. Mm-hmm. Because as much as I try to be funny in English and use humor and references, it doesn't feel natural. Mm-hmm. But I think it goes back to when you put those parameters around kids and tell them, like, hey, you can't speak Spanish in here. You're robbing them of their personality.
Yeah, this was before class, Christian. Like, man, class hadn't even began. I got there early. I was one of the first. I would always get there early. So me and this other Mexican kid, we would get there early. Yeah, and we would just start talking Spanglish.
Yeah.
So jump back and forth.
Which we don't have a choice sometimes. Like, I was in the beginning of this interview, I didn't realize. I was like, well, that's Spanish.
I think in Spanish, and then I talk English sometimes. Like, yeah, man, it's hard to juggle everything. But I remember he told me, he was like, hey, like, you need to stop speaking Spanish. Wow. And I was a kid, so I would defend myself now, right? Yeah. And tell him, like, there is no official language. Even for sure. There was an executive order recently, but even then, it's not an official language. And I remember I told my dad, and it was so funny because I got called up to the office, right? And I'm heading over to the office. I'm like, I wonder if I'm getting called to the office. And before I even reach to the office, I see the silhouette of my dad, like, walking really fast towards me. And I'm like, he got past the security in the office. And then he comes to me. He's like, Irvin, ¿dónde está tu maestro? Because I had already told him. I had told him that.
So he was there for the talk to the teacher. Okay, good.
And then I see the front desk lady running behind my dad, like 2 front desk ladies running behind my dad. And my teacher, I go in the class and I'm like, teacher, I forgot his name. I was like, my dad wants to talk to you. He's outside of the class. And he looks at me like, how did your dad get over here? And then this other teacher comes out too. And he kind of gets in the middle of my dad and the teacher. Yeah. And it was just awkward. For that point, I was just like, I can't even go to class. I can't see my...
It's embarrassing. Yeah.
Like, he didn't get reprimanded for telling me to stop speaking Spanish before class. It wasn't during class. Yeah. So that's why I was kind of like, I'm just not going to go to class anymore. And, like, he didn't care enough to try to fix the situation.
That's crazy.
So it sucks that that many of us have to go through situations like that. So it's like, I'm grateful for instructors like you and other folks in this district specifically in Rogers that go beyond to make their students feel welcome and then also, like, get them in a pathway to success.
Right, yeah. Yeah, because like you said, we come here and we want to fit in and we want to do those things, but at the same time, Spanish has everything to do with our culture and who we are, so it's kind of hard to show that when you have the adults at that age. You're right, I was told the same thing at times, and thankfully I hadn't learned the game of school yet, because I just kind of would ignore him, and I would get in trouble for that too. I would get in trouble for for speaking Spanish all the time, and I had some great Spanish teachers that really instilled in me, the power of being bilingual. I'm sure you've heard of the Arnhards and
I was about to tell you, Rogers was very blessed to have
man,
people like Miss Arnhart and Mr. Arnhart.
they're amazing. And my mentors in that world, even when I was a student, helped me with, hey, we need go back to the advocacy. We need a couple people to come translate, because back then the district didn't hire as many outside translators.
Yeah.
So it was kids translating for parents.
Yeah, I showed up to Rogers once.
Yeah. And so
I don't even go here. And Brig Caldwell reached
Man.
out. He was like, "Hey, like, can you come over here and translate?" And I was like, "Sure." Pulled up.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. But hey, but look at us. We're bilingual. We made it. Like
Right.
we're here, and that teacher's still probably monolingual. So
I sometimes I think one time I went to go look to see if he was still there. He's not there anymore, so it doesn't matter.
Whatever.
But I do want to talk about that though. Like the Rogers School District, for some reason, has a lot of like cool, inclusive teachers.
Yeah.
Some white, like Mr. and Mrs. Arnhart, who
Yeah.
are already retired, but they were here. Great instructors like Brig. Did you ever meet Brig? I forgot if I asked you.
Yes, yeah, he's my guy, man. Whenever I worked at Heritage at the beginning as a coach, he did like a family liaison role, which ironically I ended up recreating a role like that about 4 years ago, and he was the inspiration for that, because he literally, whatever the parents needed, he was there for Hispanic families and for all, but necessarily for Hispanic families. So great guy, que en paz descanse.
Yeah, he would invite us to go speak to his students about different things that were happening with immigrants, and then he helped. We hosted a DACA clinic there at the school that he pretty much got us in the door for.
Yeah,
and I would also volunteer for the dance that he would do, like
it's a Lulac dance, and then it was like
what was it? Was it like I think it was Lulac
or like Sabor Latino dance, something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. And,
Yeah.
and I remember, his death. I took that really hard, and it still affects me to this day, just because I remember seeing him healthy.
I know,
in
man.
October, and then in November, him passing away, and I had to leave because we had a family gathering in Texas, so I literally left the funeral and went straight to Texas. So I didn't really have time to
process that. Yeah,
to process it, and then you come back and you're like, "What? Like Brig died like that?"
man.
So, but even in his time that he was here, he really laid a strong impact, on people's lives. I still interact with people today when they'll be like, "Oh yeah, like Brig helped me out with this. He was that." Right. So I kind of see him like, and I've talked about this before, like those old school like movies where like a Latino teacher comes in,
man,
and changes people's lives, like Stand and Deliver or all these. Like I think about Brig, but then I also see the new generation of like you and Martin and other individuals that are doing good work here.
Well, and you're gonna get chills now, because our Crossroads students went and competed at the life event at NWAC this year, and guess which award they? So I don't know if you knew that, but they have an award for the most spirited. Just basically, if you fully immerse yourself in the experience, you have to compete different categories. You get the Brig Caldwell Award. And dude, I'm telling you right now, when they walked in from that competition with the banner that says Brig Caldwell, I mean, there were tears in my eyes. Because I think if Brig was here, he would be proud of the work that we've done here, and to see our kiddos, because they competed against Springdale, Harbor, Rogers, Heritage, and to see our kiddos so proud to carry that banner. They got a couple other awards, but the main one that I noticed was the Brig Caldwell Award, and it just embodies the advocacy work that he left behind. And your question about how is it that Rogers has a lot more inclusive mindsets. I think it has everything to do with the first pioneers that got here, and Papa Rap. I remember him doing a lot of work back then, and I think I would like to say the Arnhards were the catalyst of a lot of the inclusivity. But I think the way that they empowered us, they didn't just put us to workshops and things like that. They explained the why behind it. I think that they did a lot of educating on the why you're supposed to be okay with being bilingual, and why is it okay and the responsibility that comes with being bilingual, and I think a lot of the pioneers that we had in this district really took their time to explain the why. And I can tell you that anytime that they call for any project that they got going on, I can always see the same consistent why, which is how can we help our families? How can we provide opportunities? And all of a sudden, you look around, and we're a pretty diverse district. And I do think, excuse me, it comes from within. And it goes back to the Briggs and to the Arnhards and to Amargos and like all those guys that were here before us that set the foundation for us.
I do think that like Springdale's also getting to that field as well. There's educators that are becoming vice principals. Like Sonia Hernandez over there in Springdale. Yeah. But I do feel like Rogers has folks that have kind of reached like vice principal and getting close to principal. Yeah. Or is there a principal yet? That's
Martina Octo is a principal. Yeah.
Oh, he is. Yeah. Principal at what school?
Octo, and he's got Leo Hernandez, who's an assistant, who's also Hispanic, Salvadorian.
So it's cool, right, to see man. These folks reaching kind of these heights and just it becoming kind of normal. Yeah. That it's like because I remember I was raised in California, so some of my principals were Latino. Yeah. Like back in like 1998, 1999 and stuff. So just to see it here, it just kind of it warms my heart.
Man, we're getting there, and it takes everybody. I look at all those guys that are doing it in education and really setting those foundations. And it goes back to what I said earlier. When growing up in El Salvador, I would see the reality around me, and at the time it was my grandmother, dreaming for me and thinking for bigger things for my life, and so I always had that dreamer mentality. And then I get here, and you're right. I mean, I became a Spanish teacher and a soccer coach because Coach Barker, who is one of my biggest inspirations and mentor, that's what he did. And so I thought, well, he's successful. He loves soccer as much as I love soccer. So I think I want to do that. And
so what did you want to be a teacher with the intention of being a coach? Is that the coach was the main goal? Do you think?
I think coaching was the main goal. Like that's what I started with. And then I had to get a degree, and so that's kind of how it merged together. But I think it was more of like what he did. Like what I realized early on was like it was what Coach Barker did for all of us. It was the fact that he provided opportunities for us. And so immediately when I got into coaching, I realized, and I think this is where it comes a full circle where now we're sitting here and Heritage is state champ. At the time, Heritage was one of the worst programs in the state, and that itself was exciting to me, and I remember calling Coach Barker. I had the opportunity to coach RHS or Heritage that year, and I was blessed enough to apply and get some interest from both schools. And I remember calling him and I said, Coach, what do I do? Like, I played for Rogers, I was a captain there. There's a legacy there of, where I was. What do you think? And I remember him asking me, well, what do you want to do? He's like, do you want to come win some games? Do you want to win a championship? Like, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to be like you. I said, I want to give kids rides to practice. I want to make them do cross country because you made us do cross country and all these different things. And he said, I think that's your answer. And I think from that to where we're at now, that's why this championship feels so special for me. Because from the start of this program, when I took over.
When did you take over?
2014, around that time. Yeah, so been about 11 years or so. Yeah, and from the start of it, it was I think we won 2 games my first year, and it was a pretty small team by the end of it because I came in with rules, standards, and all of that, and then all of a sudden the second year, because of the struggle that we had, we end up I believe in the quarterfinals in second place, and then we end up in a few more semifinals here and there, but it was the way we're doing things, and it was like, I'm not gonna lie, there were times where I would question, I would say, but is there an easier way to do this? Like, because I'm the type to, bench a player because they brought the wrong training jersey, or, you're late to the bus, you don't travel. Like, I have a responsibility after they leave high school, and I take that serious. And so at times I would question myself, like, man, there are other people that might do it differently. And I thought, are we never going to win a championship because some of the rules that I have are keeping us from that? Because there are games where we could have been more competitive, but the best players didn't play that game because they lacked, discipline in other aspects. And so taking over that program then and implementing great rules, that were higher than the normal standard for the state. We do a cool tradition where, we dress up every Wednesday. We call it Well Dressed Wednesday. And the idea behind it was that I wanted my players to be the leaders in their environment at school. And I thought if once a week they're dressed in a way that they look like leaders, they look like businessmen, then teachers will kind of create that unconscious bias of, hey, they already had the unconscious bias of my kids getting in trouble and things like that, normal teenagers. So I thought, well, what if we switch that? What if we put them in their faces every single Wednesday and then dress nicely? And then we started doing like writing letters to teachers and, bringing, thank a teacher with a flower and all these little silly things that might seem small. But now looking back at the program that we've built, it all makes sense because our kids, I mean, we packed the stadium in the finals. We had 2 buses for a spare bus, and it feels like a community win. It doesn't feel like, to answer your question from earlier, I don't feel like I won a state championship. I think we won a state championship.
So it takes a village.
My goodness, I couldn't have done like 10, 11 years ago when I took over, we weren't ready to be champions yet, in that aspect.
I saw y'all had like police escort for a while.
Man, yeah.
I saw Acambaro fed y'all.
Yeah, it's everybody. Acambaro has helped us out. Rod Badelli from State Farm has helped us out. Subway, we have tourist tours who helps us with driving us around. Like, it's a full community, and all the people. That's what's cool about it. It's like, it's not like a business transaction. It's not like I've emailed somebody and be like, hey, I would like to have you as a sponsor. It's all people from our community. At times they reach out to us and say, hey, we would like to help. And I think it speaks to the work that my kiddos have done and to that community aspect, so yeah, working through those stages of building up this program and to now sit here and say, we're state champs. It goes back to what I was saying about Coach Barker, is that he was right. He was so right in the fact that I feel so proud of the work that's been done, for this past decade, because when I look at that championship, I understand the sacrifices that our families have made and the sacrifices that, my players have made to be able to call themselves champions, and a lot of them, we're the only program that has soccer first hour. And everybody thought that was crazy. This was the first year that we did that. It worked. But
so what does that look like? I mean, like they come into school and the first thing they do is
so and 1 hour wouldn't be enough for them to shower and get ready. So we actually come in at times at 6:30, and so we come in, we practice until about 7:45, and then they go shower up and get to second hour. And so we did that because what I realized is that pretty much all my kiddos have jobs and they're out there working, in bodegas, and they're doing hard labor. So I was asking kids to go to school all day and to practice hard for 2 hours and then rush to their work where they're going to be there for until sometimes 12 or 1, depending how old they are, and then do it all over again the next day. And having soccer first hour, what I thought was going to happen was like, okay, well, now we're not going to be missing kids from practice because they got to leave early for work. Because I had kids at like our chefs' restaurants where like they're calling me and saying like, coach, they have a big party coming into the restaurant. I got to go. But we're in the middle of practice. We're trying to figure things out for the next game. I'm not going to tell that kid, well, no, you can't go make money.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them are here, for different countries to do that. And so I thought, well, maybe we'll move soccer to first hour. And I knew it was going to be difficult, with the rides and all of that. But what ended up happening is I got to know my students in such a deeper level because now I knew the stories. Whenever somebody wasn't there, it was like, I kid you not, there were 2:30 a.m. text messages from a player where he's like, coach, I think they're asking me to prep for the next day. Like, I might need to go home and sleep for a couple hours. And then I had players who would show up after working a long shift like that. And you could just tell. I was like, man, like they're not ready for some soccer right now. So getting to know them at that level and just showing them grace, having those conversations where initially they thought, because I'm a disciplinarian, don't get it twisted. But at the same time, like looking at them and say, hey, hold on. Like, that's life, brother. Like, it's okay. Like, you just thank you for being here. How about you help me coach for the next 30 minutes? And the bond that was created between this team came from a lot of that, where we knew so much more about each other. To the point of like, there was time where my wife's car wasn't working and I had to take her to Fayetteville and come back and that became difficult. And all of a sudden I'm like, I'm on time to practice, which normally I got to be there 30 minutes before. So I think all of that, the story of this team kind of embodies really who I am and who the people that support me are, which is, work hard, show up for people, and don't look at how hard things are gonna be. Just work, and life is hard, and it's hard for a lot of us. But at the same time, there are certain things that we can control, and as long as we're helping one another, things, dreams can become a reality. So.
What do you think clicked this year that made y'all win the state championship?
I think we had a really good defensive mindset. And so every year I asked a couple essential questions that we're going to answer throughout the season. And one of those questions that I asked this team this year was, we knew we didn't have like a top scorer. We graduated Carter Leegee. He's playing at Oklahoma Wesleyan. And so we graduated him. He had most of our goals from the previous year. So we knew we got a couple guys that are hard workers that are play the position. But historically, they hadn't scored, 10, 15 goals. So in our conference, it's hard to score one goal. So we knew we had to figure out defensively who we were going to be. And one of the essential questions I asked him was like, hey, who are we on defense? What do we sound like? What do we look like on defense? And for the first 3 weeks, we just answered that question. And every practice was focused on defining who we were. And when I say we literally, I set up the activities, but we record, we have little mics that we record for the kids. And then with the captains, really, we go back and
I think I saw one of y'all videos.
Yeah, man, we try to have fun with it.
You're tough, Christian. I was like, man, Christian's a little tough out here.
Oh, they mic me up. Yeah. Man, thank God they cuss themselves out. It's a conference game, brother. It's a lot of pressure there.
I get it.
But so that I think I asked one of the kids, like, are you awake? I'm like, come on. He's like, yeah, coach, I'm awake. I'm like, well, come on, let's show me that you're awake. But things like that were like, I think we defined really well early on who we were going to be defensively. And then we started the season with non-conference. We won a couple games, but then we lost a game and we tied 2. So it was we lost to Benville West, which historically we do really well against them. So it kind of started in a way that it was tough. And then, I mean, it goes back to the story of this group, man, because then we, all the political stuff came out. And then I started dealing with not just we weren't winning, but then I'm having players who are calling me and saying, Coach, my parents don't want me to play soccer anymore. Or Coach, I can't drive to practice anymore. And remember I said we moved it to the morning. Yeah. So they're having to drive when it's dark. Mm-hmm. And man, something beautiful. I think you and I texted whenever this was going on, man. Yeah. Where all of a sudden, I mean, I'm getting chills just because at the moment I thought I could care less about soccer. Mm-hmm. And for me to say, I love the sport. You mentioned you cry with sports. Mm-hmm. Bro, I cry every time Barcelona's struggling. I'm the kid that used to scream at the TV. I can watch soccer for fun. Mm-hmm. And for a second, there was about 10 days where I was telling you earlier, I was saying thank you for allowing me to be part of the advocacy work that happened during those weeks, because you have no idea how much that meant for me. Mm-hmm. Because my outlet, when I'm stressed and I feel like the world's too heavy on my chest, I try to get out there and do something about it. Mm-hmm. And me being able to be there and next to you and helping our community was the breath that I needed, because at the time, I didn't know that I had an answer for my kiddos. And I didn't want to be the coach that told them, come play, drive here, and then they get pulled over and now they're getting deported. Yeah. I've had a player call me from a detention center in the past, talking about, Coach, can you call my mama because I'm getting deported? It doesn't feel good, and it haunts you for a long time. And so we had that week, like I said, after we started going, all of a sudden I'm questioning, well, are we gonna have a team? How many of these kids are gonna not be able to make it here? And at that moment, a couple of things happened that I think glued us together. And I just asked those players, are you okay with me asking your teammates if they are willing to give you a ride? The ones that are documented. Dude, and man, I love these dudes. They're awesome. I send that out. Obviously, our kiddo said that was okay. And I send that out, and immediately, a few of my captains, hey, I got it, Coach. Don't worry about it. Hey, tell him I'll be at his house at this time and blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, dude, that gets taken care of. And then it's 10:30 at night. One of the shirts that you got has the word familia on there, but I'm laying there and I'm thinking, well, we need to make this story about us being able to persevere through these hardships. And in March Madness, all the schools have the family and their logo on those shirts. I don't know if they still do that, but a lot of times they do that. So I had this crazy idea, and one of the ladies that does all our marketing or helps us with marketing for the school, I just texted her. I said, "Hey, I have a crazy idea. Would you be able to make me a shirt like yesterday? Like I needed like ASAP, and I needed to say familia in Spanish with our ego on it, and because I want to. I'll explain later." And man, she's amazing. She rush ordered all those shirts. A couple days later, she's at our practice, and I hand those out to my boys, and I talk to them about what that word meant to us, and I told them about what that season, as frustrating it had been, because mind you, we had 16 seniors, so we shouldn't be starting the season with a tie and two or with a loss and two ties, and we talked about all the things that are going on, and we just sat there. Everybody got a Familia shirt. And at the time, I didn't know it was gonna be kind of a mogul of our season, but we started clicking in a different way. And all of a sudden, kids are wearing that shirt. And in the past, it's like, oh, it's not that cool to wear a training jersey. Like you practice in it, you just throw it away, you throw it in your locker. All of a sudden, I'm driving around, I see my players wearing that shirt, and then they wanted more gear with that word on it. And so we started really developing that idea of like, well, what does it mean to be part of this team? And we say, a lot of people say, family.
Yeah.
But what does that really mean? And when you start writing a list of like, well, it means we wake up, mind you, some of these kids were waking up at 5 a.m. to make sure that they picked up their teammates. And
it's like waking up with other people in mind instead of yourself.
And I'm getting chills just because like I've had captains, I've had great men that have played for that program. Like I'm so proud of the young men that we developed there. But the way that this group stepped up for each other, and the way that at that moment where I didn't know what to do, because I physically can't pick up all of them, and legally, if Raj Public Schools is watching, I don't do that. And so it's like I didn't know what to do.
I know historically Latinos can put like 30 people in a car,
Listen,
but not,
I don't know.
You can't do that.
I've heard stories,
especially in Rogers. You can't do that.
But Coach Barker just retired. He used to do that. Like I'm gonna throw him on the bus.
Throw him under the bus.
Yeah. No. Side note: he used to tell us like, "All right, but if you'll see the Cubs behind me, be like, Coach, we know what to do. We know what to do." And if they ask, be like, "We jumped in the back of the truck. He don't even know we're here." So, anyway, so the way that they kind of they came together, that's when I started realizing like, well, this is special. Like I've never. Bro, there was a day where we had a game, and we're lucky that we get Subway as a sponsor, so we get food before, and then Marco's Pizza, shout out to them, they give us post-game pizza for the boys. And there was a day where I just forgot to order the pizza, and I owned it, and I said, boys, sorry, we're not getting a post-meal. And all of a sudden, one of the boys is like, well, why don't we just go eat some tacos? Like, so-and-so's dad owns Tacos El Moy, and we can go there. And he said that he'll give us a $1 taco if we go. So we're on a charter bus from West, and we pull out to Tacos El Moy down the street. And that's what they wanted to do. It's a Friday night, and a bunch of teenage boys, they just wanted to go get some tacos with each other. Bro, and it's like, when I look at the time, it's like 11:30. I'm having to call parents. I'm like, hey, by the way, yeah, they're not lying. They're with me. We've never had that. We've never done that. But it was because, in my opinion, it was no longer about the game. We actually tied West that day. We were all frustrated because we wanted to win that game.
But isn't that like what happens it happens in movies, and it also happens in real life where teams tend to play together whenever they trust each other.
Yeah,
and whenever they've built a relationship, and whenever like ego is not the biggest thing.
Yeah.
In when you play together, it's about winning as a team.
Absolutely.
And it's about being there for one another.
Absolutely.
So since that environment was created, maybe organically, right? Because of the situation that people were going through, that was a benefit for y'all.
And if you would have told me that was gonna come out of it, I would have said, I don't know, man. I think we're struggling right now to win a game. But then what we noticed was like we weren't winning a lot of games, we were tying a lot of them, but the teams that we were tying were beating everybody. So all of a sudden we're like, well, they say defense wins championships. And me personally, just obviously as a coach, I wanted to figure out the final third to get some goals. But at the same time, I thought, well, this is special though, because we're playing the Bentvilles and the Springdales and the Harbors and all that. They're not scoring on us, and they're scoring on everybody else. And so, like I said, about halfway through the season, I started to realize there's more than what I've had in the past year. Like you said, the trust piece was so deep that, you laugh about the mic'd up moment, but I probably coached this team the hardest I've coached a lot of teams because of that trust. Because I could be fully honest with these kiddos and be like, hey, here's where the bar is. You're not meeting it. You said you want to be a champion, so what's up? Like, you're not meeting it. And I think it just became organically una familia, you know, and we were stepped up for each other. And I can tell you that whenever we got too closer to the playoffs, there was no doubt in my mind. And I know people will say whatever, but there was no doubt in my mind that this was a team that could win a championship. We actually, I'll give you this. We actually did something we've never done. And I called called my AD right before we went to the playoffs, and players were at Bentonville High School. So traditionally, when you play home or like in the area, everybody goes home every day. They go to school, they go to their house, and you meet up at the fields, or you meet up at the school, you take a bus and you go to the fields. Knowing what I learned having soccer first hour, knowing the stories, the jobs that my kiddos had, knowing all of that, I thought, I'm going to the gym with my wife, and we're talking. And she said, hey, when we were in Cabot, you mentioned that the previous year, you mentioned that if you ever got the chance to be in the playoffs here, that you would try to get a hotel or, you know, or something where the guys can all be together. And I said, you know, yeah, I don't know if they'll go for it. You know, I don't know if the district, that's policy that you have to travel away for you to stay in a hotel. And she's the bet. My wife deserves a lot of credit because she makes sure she puts a standard where I've told her I needed to be in the past. And she looks at me and she goes, well, that's kind of defeating thought. Like, aren't you going to try? Like, isn't that what you do? Like, have you asked? And I'm like, well, no, but I just thought it's a lot of money, you know? And she's like, well, yeah, but you know.
Especially they're staying in Bentonville, right?
Dude, and when I tell you where we stayed, like, you're going to be like, but this is where it's a special story because, so then we have that conversation. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Well, the next day, I mean, I just pick up the phone and I start telling the story of the team from my site AD to my head AD to the principal. And then in the meantime, I also posted on our parent group if anybody had any connections to any hotel chain to let us know because I have this crazy idea. Well, within like 20 minutes, I get a call from the general manager at the A-Loft. Shout out to the A-Loft. And when I saw who they were, I was like, bro, I can't afford $200 a night. Like, That was my first thought. And he's like, whoa, no. He's like, we heard your story. We heard what you're trying to do. We will give you a hefty discount if you choose to stay with us because we want to be part of the story. And that's like a surreal moment where I'm looking around. Like I was actually in this parking lot where I got the call. And so then I call my AD back and I'm like, hey, actually, would you believe me if I told you that I can get 9 rooms for $600 a night altogether? Dang. And he's like, where? He's like, well, is it a good hotel? I'm like, it's the A-Love. It's $270 to be exact. And I said, and this is what happened. And they reached out to me. I didn't even, they reached out to me. And it just happens to be that one of our assistant volunteers, his sister works there and they heard the story and they put it all together. So then that gets taken care of. So all of a sudden, we were the only team, other than the ones that were coming from out of town, from our conference, which on Wednesday, 2 weeks ago, boys brought all their stuff and we went and locked in at the A-Loft. We ate breakfast together, we had lunch together, and we played a game. We win the first game against Cabot. We go back, and we had 2 kids graduating from New Tech that day. They went back to the hotel. Their parents brought them their stuff. We took them to the graduation. We took the whole team to cheer them on graduation. On the way back, we went to Olive Garden together. We invited their families to join us. Because you would think, well, it's graduation. Maybe, you're going to let them go out. I was like, no. If we're locked in, everybody's locked in. Yeah. And, I heard later on that parents thought that was a little crazy. But, hey, you get a little crazy when you get me. But so we did that, and we kept winning. We went the next day, back to the hotel. Then Friday was a crazy day. We ended up having to eat tacos because Heritage graduation was so long. But same thing, the boys, and I asked the boys, do you guys want to do this? Because you're not going to be able to go to work. You're not going to be able to, like, when I say curfew, I mean, like, you're not leaving. You got to lock in. Like, you got to make sure you stay with me. And every single one were like, why wouldn't we? Like, coach, if you pull that off, they're like, we're in. Like, we'll call off right now and tell our work that we're not going to be available for the next 4 days. Yeah. And dude, so like little things like that, when you ask me what was different, it was the willingness of the community to help us. It was the buy-in of this group to each other and to the commitment that they had for each other. And I think a lot of credit to the players that came before them, because they set the standard of, when I asked those essential questions, like, well, who are we on defense? I also asked them, like, who are we as a team? Like, who are we as members of the community? Yeah. And what does that look like? And I think that players that came before them helped answer those questions by, we're good people. We show up. The hotel people, after we stay there, they actually bought our state shirts because they wanted to represent when we played in the finals. And just because they said that we were well behaved while we were there and we took care of everything, we thanked them after every meal and stuff like that. So I think long answer to your question is, this was a special team that decided that we were going to be, una familia, and that we were going to look after each other, and we wanted to be champions. We always talk about, like, well, what does a champion do? And we just show up for each other, and here we are.
How do you feel that they felt the day of the state championship? Like, for the most part, what was their vibe?
Yeah, that's a good question, because none of us, including me, I've coached finals in club, but it's different. But none of us have been there before. And so we went a few days earlier to get used to everything. But the morning of, we woke up, we had a breakfast, and kind of letting out my secret here, but that's okay. We actually did a thing where I had all their parents or people that love them at home, or uncles, or whoever they're here with, write them a letter of motivation just to see how proud they were. And so that morning, we woke up, we had breakfast, and my wife wrote me a letter as well. Coach Parker, shout out to you, wrote me a letter. And we all just sat and had breakfast and read the letters. And so that morning, we all cried, because we all remember the purpose that we were there for. And, some of them, their grandmas wrote them letters. I opened it up to teachers. Teachers wrote letters for them. And so for the first 2 hours of the day, we all just reminisce on how beautiful of a journey it had been. We didn't do anything that had to do with soccer. It was all about the emotional trip that we took there. And we did that.
Psychological preparation is also strong.
And so because I wanted them to remember, like, hey, you're representing, we might be away from home. And I didn't know, by the way, how many people were going to show up to the final. We're in Conway on a Friday night. Yeah. I'm thinking, man, it's probably not going to be a lot of people. But I wanted them to remember, like, the idea behind the letter came from, for me, when we started this conversation, I told you about my grandmother. And anytime I do something that's scary or something that I need extra motivation for, I think of her, and I think of los consejos that she gave me. Mm-hmm. And that was the idea there. I wanted them to think about, who do they represent? Who's sacrificing so much so that you can be here today? Yeah. And did that. We had about an hour of downtime right before the final where I felt like they were a little nervous, and quite transparently, I was a bit nervous too for that hour, because up until that moment, everything was scripted. Everything was like very, we had an activity for every minute of the day, it felt like, except for there was about an hour when, you awkwardly check out of the hotel and it's not time to go to the fields yet. And after that, once we got on the bus, I saw them, a lot of them open up their letters again. It's on the way there. They also read them. So that kind of became the theme of, like, motivation piece. We got there, an hour before, where, we went rushed, and I felt a certain amount of calm from them in a weird way, like they've been there before. And I think, I don't know how much you believe in, like, visualizing things. But we laugh about it now, but, like, I would always talk to them about, like, hey, have you all thought about how the finals is going to be? And this was like game 4. We're still not even, at the time, we weren't even qualified to go to playoffs. I'm like, y'all ever thought if it's going to rain on the day we play the final, boys? Like, what do y'all think? And I'm like, coach, chill. Like, we still got to practice. I'm like, no, yeah. But, like, have you thought about how, like, is it going to be hot? You think it's probably hot, huh? But watch, it's going to rain. And just things like that. Like, we've talked about that moment for so long.
Because you're already putting them there.
Well, you have to, man.
So it's like they can visualize already themselves there, but they believe that there's a possibility because their coach is telling them that.
Yeah,
imagine it,
And I think that's part of my my job, right? It's get them to genuinely believe they can get there. And so when we got to the fields, I felt like they were calm. I felt like our warm up was so good. Our assistant coach went and did a pregame speech with them because he's actually won a state championship with RHS, and so he talked to them about the journey that he had with his team. And yeah, we didn't do anything out of the norm. Like we we normally have a pregame speech. Somebody comes in as a guest and gives them a speech. We did our warm up. We went in. They knew their lineup already because we had talked about tactics in the hotel. And then it was just another game. Like, it really, the emotions were there. The stadium was definitely packed. But I would be lying to you if I told you I remember a lot of the small moments. You know, kind of when I coach, similar to when I played, I kind of just block out the world. And I just remember the soccer moments. I remember, fouls and yellow cards and all of that. But as far as the rest of the world, I have no idea what was behind me.
Y'all went to penalties.
2 overtimes and penalties.
That must have been somewhat nerve-wracking.
Yeah, at some point, when I realized that we missed a couple, and normally, so the goalie was smart. He did his research from Catholic, and we had gone to penalties in the quarterfinals. And so he had written it down on his water bottle where we went. And you'll love the story. So actually, when we realized that was after the first PK, because Richie shot a really good PK where he normally shoots, and the goalie almost was already there when he shot it. So I thought, that's weird. So Lucas, Brazilian coach that we have that's there with us, he noticed that. And he's like, hey, coach, I think he knows where we're going. And we're having like a short dialogue between him and I. And we both decided that if we told the boys that the goalie knew where they were going, and they switched their side, penalties are such a mental game. And if they switched it, we're like, well, for the rest of their lives, they're going to look at us and be like, you told us, you messed me up. And we thought, well, I think that's not fair. Let them, because even if the goalie knows where you're going, if you shoot it, correct, like it might go in. And so we decided, it's funny because on the video, you can see Christian Soto, who scores the second one. You see me calling for him where at that time I thought I would tell him. And then the crowd was so loud that he doesn't really hear what I'm saying. So he turns around and he's like, what's up, coach? I was like, good luck. That's all I said, man. Keep it going. And later on we talked about it. The boys are smart. They had figured out that he knew. But they all decided to go the same way. Except for Keiko, our Italian. He does like a Coutinho type of PK where he switches it depending on where the goalie goes. Like that kid played professionally in Italy and just amazing. But
he's on your team?
Yeah, he was a foreign exchange student.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
He came for actually a semester and ended up at Heritage and was able to play for us. But yeah, so we went to penalties. After the first miss, I was a little nervous about the fact that I was like, well, if he knows, what's going to happen. But then when Christian Soto makes that PK with going to the side that he went before, but just a good place penalty kick, we also had Nicolas Moreno, who was voted the best goalie in the conference and was voted the MVP of the finals. And so I thought, well, Nico's in the goal, like he's gonna stop some. Like that kid, PKs are in slow motion for him. Like he's just so good at PKs. And after we scored the second one, so it was 2-1, which there was still chances for them to come back. I remember my AD and my principal were behind me, and I looked at them and they looked so nervous. We actually had lunch the other day, and I told them, I was like, man, y'all know that you look so nervous, right? So I looked at them and they looked so nervous, and I thought, well, I can't look that nervous then. So I kind of took a deep breath and I looked at them and I said, hey guys, we have the best goalie in the state. We're gonna be fine. And we joke about it now because when I told them that, I told them I was also telling myself that, like, like we're gonna be fine. So no, after the second goal in penalties, I felt good. I felt like I trusted Nico. I trusted that he's gonna do what he's done the whole season for the last 4 years, really. And the rest is history. We won 3-1 in penalties, and it's a beautiful moment that we worked so hard for.
So have you gone to celebrate yet? What did y'all do to celebrate if you did?
We've done a few things. So Torres Tours actually had a carne asada for us because why not?
Nice.
Yeah, so we did that. We also had our end of the year banquet where we give awards and all of that. So we've had 2 parties. We went to, they had like a spring football game where they brought all the elementary kiddos from the feeder patterns to Heritage. And so we got to celebrate on the field there with them as well. So yeah, we've done a few things to celebrate.
That's good.
Still waiting for the parade, but whatever.
Well, congratulations once again on
Thanks,
winning
man.
that, and congratulations to your students if they're listening and everybody else that was involved, because it, like you said, it took a village, right?
Man, yeah, and thank you. Thank you for everybody that's always supported us. It's a big thing that we accomplish, and which tells me that we needed a lot of support. Like anything worth remembering, it's gonna need a whole village, and we had that. I mean, we have that on and off the field, and so the amount of teachers that made the trip on a Friday, took days off to go, and thank you to
all. Some teachers were wearing shirts at school.
And you get one, by the way.
Someone posted. Yeah,
we started.
I might get crucified because I'm from Springdale, but they'll understand, right?
They'll get it. DJ's a cool dude. He'll get it. And we weren't even on the same side of the bracket, so we didn't beat them.
That's true, right?
But yeah, so that shirt, like I said, it's we put it out for our players. We were gonna buy for our players, but then teachers started buying it, community members. We sold about 400 t-shirts.
Oh damn!
Yeah, that's crazy. So you're gonna be walking around Walmart and see somebody there with them.
So you got the budget ready for that next stay at the All Loft Hotel.
That's the expectation now. So if the GM is listening, thank you. No, it was cool, man. It was, those boys deserve that. And
so what does it look like for you now that like you've put this high expectation now, right?
Yeah.
Because you're state champion
for
now.
Sure.
So like next year, people are gonna expect y'all to be good as well.
Yeah.
So have you put thought into that, like what you want to do to remain consistent with having a top team in the division? And
so to that, I would say nothing's gonna change as far as our standards. Like we've always had hard standards within our team. We've always been competitive. Like I told you, the first year, we won a couple games. And then our league is so competitive every year that, I mean, when we beat Bentonville, they were number 14 in the nation, and we had lost to them and tied them in conference. And so as far as being competitive or being a top team, I think we're going to continue to do what we've done, and in the sense of every time you play Heritage, it's going to be a hard game, and so
do you think that you will remain with the defensive mindset for the team, or do you think you just gotta wait to see what players you get the next season?
Yeah, that's the cool thing about high school is as much as I would love to answer that right now, I have no idea who's walking through those doors, because even though we have about 9 players that went to state returning, kids grow, kids decide to do different things.
Yeah.
And so we have a brand of soccer that we play. We're a possession-based style team, and so we do that. But at the same time, we didn't possess a lot this year, in the sense of like, when you're defending, a lot, then turns a little more a direct game. But no, so to answer your question, I don't have, maybe it'll hit me whenever we start playing games, but I don't necessarily have the pressure of like, oh, well, we're champs, so we have to make sure we continue to do that. Because that wasn't what got us this championship. So I think if I did that, then I would be setting myself up for failure, right? Because I talked about being champions everywhere, not just on the field, to my players. And they behaved in ways that we were champions regardless of the score. We went to penalty kicks. Like, anything could have happened. And I would have still been as proud of this group.
Yeah.
And so to me, in the soccer role, like, do I want to be a powerhouse? And all? Yeah, sure. But I think if you ask anybody that ever plays us, it's never an easy game to play us. So I think we're already a good team. And we never, it's rare that we lose to one team twice. So like, I don't think much is going to change in that side. Will I expect to win a championship every year? Nah, I'm realistic. No, that's not going to happen every year. But as far as like the expectations, being higher, I think athletically for the people on the outside, obviously that's a thing. But man, I don't know. Maybe I'll change my mind when we get to season. But as of right now, I think we're gonna attack it with the same mentality that we have, and what happens. But at the same time, we were doing things that champions do prior to this championship, and so I do think that my players that come in will understand that. And we're going to continue to be competitive in our league. If we are blessed with another championship, then we are. But if not, we're still going to be proud of the effort that we put in. So
definitely. 2 final questions. 1, what do you do to take care of your mental health?
Yeah, I like I told you at the beginning, I grew up around coffee bean fields and farms and all of that. And so I have a little golden doodle that helps me with that,
I saw you put yesterday. I don't know if it was yesterday, this morning. You were like you were gonna go back to doing your nightly walks.
Yeah,
runs.
nightly runs with him, man. Because in the summer he can't really run.
Can he hang? Can he run like?
Oh yeah,
he does.
Oh, he can. I think we've done like 6 miles before. Like,
oh, wow.
He can go. Right now he's a little out of shape. He just turned 5.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's getting a little older, but
Ours is 4 this month. This month turns 4 years old.
do you ever take him on
Yeah,
run?
but he's not like the one that would go along. Like
okay.
he gets easily distracted and wants to
Gotcha.
stop. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, with Archie, so to answer your question, I spend a lot of time outdoors, biking, running, just hiking, doing things outdoors. That kind of reconnects me to my purpose. And, working out. My wife and I usually go in the mornings and do that whenever I'm not coaching. And so, yeah, just a lot of solo time. My phone stays on Do Not Disturb. So apologies to anybody that ever calls me because it's not personal. But because I'm so busy all the other times of the year, when I'm able to really shut things down, then I try to just spend time alone and with my small circle there. And but yeah, I'm excited. I posted I was running a night yesterday with him, and I'm excited to get to do that again with my little dude. We don't have kids, and so he's like our own. And I know you understand that. So yeah.
I feel that. And where can people check out your podcast?
Oh yeah, Live and Learn, man. I need to drop another episode. Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on all platforms. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you consume podcasts, anywhere you can find your podcast, you can find mine. And it's called Live and Learn. And quick story behind that is, it started years ago as a kind of a project that my students challenged me. I'm the lesson teacher. I'm the lesson guy, and I always wanted my students to learn something other than, at the time, Spanish. And I gave a quick speech about, there was a student that was complaining about their unrealistic expectations of their parents on them. And I told them about this poem that talks about the fact that our parents, kind of parent us with the outline of who they wish we were. Not in a negative way, but like they're kind of setting the standard for us so that we can reach it. Mm-hmm. And I went on about, explaining that. And I said, they might be disciplining you, but that means they care. They love you. And they're doing it in a way that they just want you to be better. Mm-hmm. And this kid goes, man, you should record that. So then I ended up recording it. And I sent it just to that family, called them, make sure they were okay. They weren't going to take it personal. And then all of a sudden, a kid was like, I let my aunt listen to this. And they're like, hey, you should do a podcast. And I don't know if you can relate to this, but because I learned English as my second language, I am like a little self-conscious sometimes when I hear myself on audio. And so it's interesting because I told them that was my response to them. I said, whoa, no, guys. I'm like, I can't hear myself on an audio. And man, this kiddo had the best response. He goes, so you make us do videos all the time to learn Spanish and listen to us multiple times, but you're not willing to do that? Yeah. Whoo! Mic drop, right?
He didn't call you out. He called you in.
In, man. Yeah. And I said, I'm doing it. I said, but y'all got to come up with the name, the artwork, all of that. So shout out Brett Gaffney. She designed the art that I still use for my podcast. They kind of gave me the first few themes, and now it's, like I said, it's called Live and Learn, because if I'm reading a good book, I'll go and talk about, they're short, 10-15 minutes, and I go on there and talk about what I learned. If I had a hard lesson, then I go on there and talk about it. And I like to challenge the listeners, to at least practice one thing. Are you saying thank you after every time that you leave the restaurant, or are you being patient in the Starbucks line?
How many episodes in are you?
Man, 20 plus. I mean, it's a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've already passed the 7. The 7's like the one where it's like, if you don't reach 7, then people usually quit before 7.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah. So if you've gone past 7, then you're...
Oh, no, dude. It's been a couple years of me doing it.
But it's been probably a few months since you posted one.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Soccer season stuff.
Well, now you can put maybe talk about your experience, with the state championship.
That's true. That's true.
That would be a good episode to, everything you said here, but more in depth.
That's true.
As to what you were feeling, what your students were feeling. I think that'd be a good episode to come back. You can come back and the episode could be like, hey, I'm back and I'm state champion now.
I'm gonna give you some credit on that, man. It looks like you've done this before.
I'm about 300 episodes in.
Man, I don't know if I catch you, but
eventually, man. Eventually you will. So to end this episode, I would like for you to end it with a message to your students that won the state championship. What would you like to, because I'm pretty sure some of them will be listening to this episode.
For sure.
So what is a message that you would have for them? Specifically, I think for all of them, but specifically for the folks that have graduated?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think if anything, I would like to tell them thank you. Thank you for believing in the crazy dream. Thank you for just being fully committed. Like, I know it was hard to wake up in the mornings. It was hard for me too, and so I just want to say thank you for the commitment. And as they go on with their lives, like you said, for the seniors that have graduated, I just want to remind them of things that I've told them in the past, which is, when you have a crazy dream, like when I told you that we would be traveling on charter buses one day, and then it happened, there's always going to be people that will put their limitations on you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that life is full of people that want to put limitations on others. And if you let their limitations keep you from achieving your dreams, then all of a sudden you become a reflection of their expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And to them, I want to say that we never let people's expectations hold us back from being champions. Nobody expected us to beat Bentonville. Nobody expected us to beat Broken Arrow, Jinx, Union, all the teams that we beat prior to them. But we didn't listen to that. We didn't look at the rankings. Like, I'm sure at some point we were ranked. We didn't care about that. And so my challenge to them would be, sometimes you're going to have those crazy dreams. You're going to want the house, the car, the wife, and make sure you put in the work, obviously, because you can't have crazy dreams without putting in the work. But if you're willing to put in the work, don't let people tell you whether your dream is crazy or not. Just get to it, get to work. And we've done something special. We've made history in our area, and we didn't do it by listening to other people's opinions or people's expectations. We did it by putting in the work and dreaming together. So yeah, I would tell them not to stop dreaming, not to stop chasing what they want, and to never ever let other people tell them how far they can go. Because if we did that with our season, then I wouldn't be sitting here talking about championships.
State championship.
Yes, sir. Go Warriors.
Well, thank you, Christian. I appreciate you making the time to be here, man. I feel like we can talk for hours, but for the sake of our listeners, let's give them a good 1 hour episode for them to listen to. But congratulations once again on being state champion. I know that was based on what you said. It was a very difficult journey with a lot of challenges, but hey, that the results were growth for a lot of people, right?
Absolutely.
Your students grew in so many ways, and now they're able to take, tell their kids and tell their family members, hey, I'm a state champion.
Yeah.
That's something that they'll have with them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And we'll be able to carry that with pride.
Absolutely.
So congratulations on that. And yeah, go check out Christian's podcast.
Yeah, live and learn, man. Check it out. Anywhere you can find this podcast, you can find it. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of that. And thank you, man. Thank you for allowing me the space. I respect you. I respect a lot of all the things that you do for our community. And so thank you for allowing me to be part of this journey here with you. And we'll continue to be advocates for our community and continue to have fun with it and make sure that at the end of the day, it's because of people like you that we continue to grow and open doors for others. So I really respect the work that you do. So it's an honor for me to be here listening to your podcast and now recording them with you, because I followed your journey too, and you've had a pretty special one. So thank you.
Appreciate it, brother. Likewise. And if you ever need a guest for your podcast, I'm inviting myself right now.
Hey, my wife has been the only guest so far.
Hey, hit me
you
up.
might be the second one.
Hit me up.
All right, bro.
But for everybody listening, that was the end of this episode with Coach Saavedra. Congratulations once again to him, to his team, for becoming the 6A state champs here in Arkansas. And for everybody listening, that was the end of the episode. Catch you all next week.